Hello everyone, and welcome back. This is episode 9 of Nintendo Everything Refresh, the official podcast of NintendoEverything.com, where we come at you every week and we refresh your memory over what is new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. I'm your host, Nick Serpa, joined today by the wonderful Luiz Estrella.
Hello everyone.
And of course, the all-time classic, Nicholas Schade.
Hi everyone, happy to be here.
Now, this week, we're doing something a little bit different. We do have some news topics to talk about, and we'll get to those in the back half of the show. But before we do that, it's getting to that time where we really don't know when exactly, but everyone's feeling it deep down in their hearts that someday soon, Nintendo is going to announce their plans for the summer. We're getting to that time of year where all the big companies, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, some third parties, they're all going to have their live streams or their big events for, we can't really call it E3, but they're not E3 shows, let's say, where they are going to hopefully announce some games. We already know that Summer Games Fest is coming up. Microsoft has announced their press conference. Haven't heard much from Sony or Nintendo yet. So today we're going to start out today's episode just by giving our hopes and our predictions over what Nintendo may have in show to show us over the summer. We could all be totally wrong about this. We'll find out in the not too distant future. I guess my first question is, let's throw this one to Nicholas. Do you think Nintendo is going to even have a live stream this summer?
I think they definitely will. For one, I'm not sure when exactly E3 was canceled, but I think they've definitely had a schedule set up in place with a plan to have some sort of presentation in the summer. And I would be very surprised if E3 not happening would just make them not do that. Because they have a pretty regular schedule, right? Like, they usually have directs once every 4 months, I believe.
Pretty much.
So it would just make sense. The only year where we did not have an E3, I think in recent memory, was 2020. And obviously that was for some other reasons. Where Nintendo did not have a presentation in the summer. But yeah, I definitely think they're going to feature here this summer in some way. The question is just going to be when.
Yeah, it's more often than not lately, they have been having the summer live streams. So I'm with you. I think we'll be getting something for sure. Luiz, are you optimistic? Do you think we're going to get something soon?
Yeah, I think Nintendo will probably keep to their schedule that I think since 2018, I don't know exactly, but they usually do 3 to 4 directs during a year, and we already had one this year. So another during June right now in the summer. I think it's perfect. And not only that, but there's a lot of games that Nintendo has to give us more updates, I guess. We still have to see more about Bayonetta 3, about Xenoblade, which will come out soon. I think it will have a new trailer probably. Splatoon.
Definitely.
So Nintendo has a lot to show, and I think that, as Nicholas said, they were probably already planning a presentation if E3 would happen, but now that it won't happen, I just hope that they will announce like a week earlier, maybe, because usually Direct is like 1 or 2 days before the presentation, and it's so soon. I just like a week earlier to build up the hype, but I don't know what they will do actually, but I just hope that they do something. I'm with high hopes, and I'm already pretty hyped. Just to give a little more fire to this conversation, I'll ask you guys a question. Do you guys think we'll see more of the sequel to Breath of the Wild in this presentation?
Ooh.
Oh man, that's a hard one. On one hand, I feel like if it had stuck to its original schedule and it was going to come out this year, there would be no doubt. But now that it's maybe coming out next spring is what they said most recently, there's a good chance they might... Here's what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to give us like a 30-second development update or whatever, but then they're going to save whatever trailer they have for sometime closer to the fall. That's my theory.
Breath of the Wild 2 is still coming this spring, but in the meantime, we're announcing a Zelda movie featuring Chris Pratt.
Oh no.
There you go. Chris Pratt is now just all of the Nintendo characters.
I prefer Nick's idea.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's... Because if Breath of the Wild is releasing in spring, they're going to want to have at least one big presentation focusing on it beforehand. And
Yeah.
I guess they could do that in September, depending on if it's releasing in March of next year. They could also have a direct in February that goes in depth into the game. But at the same time, having a summer presentation kind of just, it feels like it fits the bill a bit more in terms of it being such a big game with so many eyes on it. It kind of just feels, it would feel bizarre not to have it featured here, even if it's not technically an E3.
I think usually my line of thought is that E3 is a great place to show something big because all eyes are on E3. It's a moment where everyone, not only Nintendo fans, are looking. It's a presentation that brings a broad audience. But I can't say that E3 is as big as a presentation as it was in the past. And now we don't have an E3 exactly. So that makes me wonder if Nintendo will still show, it still makes sense to show Breath of the Wild even if the game is not so close to release. But
Right.
I think if they don't say anything, they will probably show. But if they are not going to show, I think they will say, before the presentation, they're going to say the sequel to Breath of the Wild will not be shown in the presentation. Because if they don't say anything, a lot of people will be disappointed. So I think that will be our sign to know if they will actually show it or not.
That's true. Yeah, it's
That's a fair
or here's an idea. Maybe they'll just come out and they'll just give us the title of the game. the
Yeah,
actual
true.
title, and then everyone will just speculate furiously for the next 5-6 months until they actually show it to us.
Yeah. Other
Yeah.
question, though. We talked about this a little bit before, but Zelda related. If we're not, since Breath of the Wild was pushed back, do you guys think we're going to get something else Zelda this year instead?
I would love it. I would love to see something
Yeah.
from them. I'm not optimistic about it, just because when they put out Skyward Sword last year for their anniversary, they said we don't have any more Zelda games in the works. I think they said for that year though, so I guess that does kind of leave the door open for maybe something this year, but I don't know.
Here's the thing, I think we already have a lot of big stuff announced for the second half of this year, like Bayonetta, a new Pokemon, stuff like that, Xenoblade. But I think a smaller game is missing. Something like a remaster or a party game. And I think...
Advance Wars?
What?
Advance Wars, maybe?
Oh yeah,
Hopefully.
Advance Wars. I mean, but it was not a planned second half game.
Yes, yeah, of course.
It would be. It would end up being. But I think a simple remaster of the Twilight Princess or Wind Waker HD version of Wii U would be simply so easy to release. But I won't be 100% on that. I don't know why. I just don't feel it feels 100% on that. But I think we'll see the reveal of probably one or two completely new games, like something that we don't know about yet on this presentation. I'm not 100% sure. I would say that one of them is probably a remaster. But we'll also probably see something. Maybe something that I've been happy to see Nintendo doing in those recent presentations is bring back some of those smaller franchises. We saw recently WarioWare, Advance Wars, of course, and even Metroid Dread was something kind of crazy because it was a long time since we saw a new 2D Metroid. So I would love to see more of that, like bringing back those old franchises, those smaller franchises, or those franchises that were locked in portable consoles. Bring it to the home consoles. I think that's awesome to see.
We could get Pikmin 4.
Oh
Pikmin
man!
4.
All right,
I forgot
That would
about
kind of
that.
fit the criteria, yeah.
All right, so if we're gonna get into speculation territory here, let's just go all the way. All right, so we have a couple games that we know are coming out like at a certain time this year. We know we're getting Xenoblade 3 in July. We know we're getting Splatoon 3 in September. We know we're getting Pokemon Scarlet and Violet towards the end of the year. But the other ones, I'm gonna call them the unknowns. We know they're coming. We know sometimes vaguely when, but we don't have any other details. So we have Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is coming out sometime this year. We don't know when. Advance Wars, as Nicholas mentioned, was delayed, has not been given a new release date. So we don't know when that is coming out yet. We've got Bayonetta 3 still penciled in for this year at 2022. And of course, we have Metroid Prime 4 to be announced. I don't think I'm forgetting anything on that list. Am I forgetting anything, you guys?
Did you mention Splatoon?
Yes, Splatoon 3 is coming out in September.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So-
do want to
think that's
mention in Nintendo's financial report, they did have a list of upcoming planned releases. Of note, I think Metroid Prime 4 was listed as TBA, so I definitely don't think it's releasing this year, if that was ever a thought, a hope any of us had.
But maybe we could see a
Bayonetta-
trailer.
I mean, yeah, that's true. It's certainly possible. Bayonetta and Advance Wars were still listed as 2022, I believe. I know Bayonetta was. Advance Wars might have been TBA, but at the very least, Bayonetta has probably not suffered any delays.
Yeah, that game has taken so long to come out. I mean, I think at this point it pretty much has to come out this year. I mean, what, they announced this game back in 2017 at the Game Awards? So
I think 2017 or 18. A
Yeah.
while ago.
yeah, it might have been 2018, but somewhere in that time frame. So I can't really imagine that one getting delayed any further. They seemed pretty confident when they announced the release window. When do you guys think
Yeah.
Advance Wars is going to come out? Do you think they're going to save it towards the end of the year, towards the holiday season, or is it just going to, maybe they'll just drop it right in the middle of the summer?
It's hard to tell. Because what exactly is their criteria going to be for releasing it, right? Like, it's a pretty clear that the reason why they delayed it was because of the whole world situation that's happening right now. And obviously we don't know when that's exactly going to be resolved and if they're going to wait for that to be completely resolved before releasing the game. In terms of dropping it in between other releases, there might be a slot for December. I think that was when it was initially slated last year, right? Before it got delayed, it was supposed to be a December release.
It was
Yeah.
yeah, and then it was going to come out in April of this year, and that
And
didn't
then- yeah.
happen. So the game has got to be pretty much done at this point.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was I think there was a person that managed to get access to the full game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because some error
Yes.
happened with the preload. Yeah. So it's definitely done, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've
I
got
wonder if Nintendo would release a new trailer on a presentation just to announce a new release dates and kind of recreate the hype, like, hey, this game will come out, and they want to announce in a big presentation just so a lot of people can revive a little bit of the hype for the game, because I think they are already ready to release the game, but they are kind of waiting for the right moments because it's a trick situation. A lot of people already forgot that the game even exists, I think, so they are kind of waiting for the right moments, I would guess.
Yeah, no, everything is still, going on with, in Ukraine, and it is still a sensitive situation, so I could see them not talking about it quite yet, but time will tell, I guess. Now, in terms of the big unknown that we haven't gotten any updates on in quite a while, Metroid Prime 4, I know we already talked about it a little bit, but how likely is it, do you think, that they will acknowledge it in some capacity this summer? Or maybe they'll give us the Metroid Prime trilogy as a consolation?
Yeah, that would be the ideal, right? I think I wouldn't bet anything on Metroid Prime 4. I wouldn't say that it will appear, but I think we are at a point right now where the possibility exists, like a 10% possibility of maybe a trailer, maybe a CGI trailer, like not even gameplay, but just something to show, hey, this is... Let's not forget, I think a good sign would be that we received maybe a new concept art of the game in the Retro Studios Twitter. They posted an image of what we would assume is from a concept art of Metroid Prime 4. Very mysterious, nothing specific, but it is like a sign that they are progressing with the development of the game. So I don't think they are in a rush, so I wouldn't bet anything on it, but I think we are starting to be on a place where it would be okay to expect something.
Yeah, I think the other thing I want to that's worth bringing attention to is that there have been a lot of rumors about getting something from the Metroid Prime trilogy, whether that's a remaster of the trilogy itself or it's a remake of the first Metroid Prime game. And if either of those things are going to happen, I would imagine they're going to be announced before Metroid Prime 4 releases, because I feel like that would probably make the most sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I feel like we're probably still going to be a little ways off. Plus, depending on what's going to be announced at this presentation, if they do feature Breath of the Wild 2, for instance, I don't know if they would want to slot in another huge game like Prime 4 just in case they kind of steal the attention off of one another. I don't know if they usually do that where they have two big showcases and or reveals. Like if we had both a gameplay reveal for Breath of the Wild 2 and for Prime 4, I don't know if that's the kind of thing that they would usually do.
Yeah,
it would.
That's true, and I mean, it would definitely, if Metroid Prime 4 was in the stream, it would totally just dominate the internet. It would take attention away from everything else they talk about. Yeah, and the other thing to consider is, on one hand, it was almost exactly 3.5 years ago that they said, we are rebooting the development of this game. And that sounds like a long time on paper, but the other thing to consider is that, if they really did have to start from scratch, and especially considering that games are taking longer and longer to make nowadays as technology gets more advanced and we're trying to get better graphics and things like that, there's a good chance that this game is still just deep in development and we still may not see it for another year or two, which I really hope is not the case. I don't think anyone really wants that, but that's definitely a likely possibility. The other thing that comes to mind is just that we were seeing, even just as of earlier this year, pretty major jobs like being open at Retro Studios, people that they were hiring. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was something along the lines of like, oh, we need like a creative director for this game, and I'm like, whoa, wait, you guys don't have that?
Lead designer.
Yeah, lead designer. I'm like, whoa, wait a second, you guys should already have this figured out. But
yeah, I have seen that's not necessarily as dire as it may seem. Just some people talking about how the fact that they're recruiting for those positions doesn't necessarily mean they haven't done anything. It just means they might need another guiding hand on some of it. But I do agree that it's not, or the game is still probably a little ways out. I think we can probably definitely expect something by E3 or the summer presentation next year, because by that time Breath of the Wild 2 will be out and we haven't gotten any other huge games announced or like just big popular games announced. But for now, I would still be hesitant to say it's going to be shown off.
Yeah. I think that's probably the smart answer, to not get your hopes up right now. I'm probably going to do it anyways, but, that's what everyone else should do. Is not
As always.
Get their hopes up. Yeah, of course. All right, so Luiz, back to your point. You said there's probably, just because of what we know about the release schedule, there's a good chance they're going to throw some surprises in there. So I just kind of want to go around the group here and just get a sense for, if you could pick one thing off of your dream Nintendo wish list for them to reveal at this E3, what would it be? Now, Luiz, do you have something in mind already?
I spent all the previous years, when everyone asked me that, I was saying Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But now that the game is a reality, the one that Nicholas brought, I think it's the one I would be the most happy to see, which is Pikmin 4. Now, I don't think we'll see it because I think I said about it before in a video, but I think Pikmin is a series very dear to Miyamoto, and it's one of the few series in which he still has a huge involvement in the directing process. Maybe for the next one he could not be as involved, but I don't see he involved in the process of any game right now. I think he's very hands-on on the movie stuff and the park stuff. So I think Pikmin 4 is not ready yet, but it would be the one that if I saw, I would be really happy. And I don't want Pikmin to miss the Switch hype train, because we are in a moment where any franchise that appears on the Switch, it is bound to be successful. It is bound to be exposed to a huge number of people just because the install base is so massive. So I would love to see a new Pikmin on the Switch receiving a huge marketing boost and giving more exposure to the franchise. But personally speaking, I don't expect, but I would love to see.
So what would your hypothetical, I mean, say we did get a Pikmin 4, you know, what would you want that to look like? What do you think, what would be the big innovations that you would want to see brought to the franchise? Or do you just want just more Pikmin?
First, I would like to see amazing realistic graphics like we saw in Pikmin 3 with those fruits. Those fruits were amazing to look at. So I would love to see an upgrade on the graphics. I think because Pikmin 3 was a very early Wii U game, so I think with the next one they could make some improvements on that department. And I would love to see because the big thing on 3 was the mechanic of working with 3 characters. And to me, that was simply amazing. But the problem was, I think that game was so, how can I say, it didn't last many hours. It was so small, the experience was, I forgot the word, but you guys understand what I meant.
Like condensed.
Yeah, I think the game has like 10 hours of gameplay, and I would love to see that concept be more explored in a bigger game like Pikmin 2. Pikmin 2 was a huge game. So I think I do not want them to reinvent the wheel of the franchise. I just want to see more of what they already had, just with more developments, more characters, and even the lore. I love the Pikmin lore. It's such a fun story to watch, to see develop. And we saw so many new characters and fun characters on 3. So basically, I want more Pikmin. That's it.
I think that's a fair thing to ask for at this point, considering that, I mean, I guess you can't, I don't know if you consider it an official announcement or not, but I mean, when was it that Miyamoto originally mentioned Pikmin 4?
Oh God.
I think he plays that game every day. Yeah.
Yeah, he made the game. It's already done. He's just keeping it for himself. Yeah.
He just forgot to release it.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
oh, I thought this was out already. No one's talking about it on Twitter. Uh-oh. All right. What about you, Nicholas? What would be your, if you could get one Nintendo dream to come true during this not E3 Direct, what would it be?
Oh, that's tough. I'm going to start with mentioning something that I think might happen because it's been rumored a lot.
Okay.
Which is, there have been a lot of rumors of a new Fire Emblem coming out later this year. Not Fire Emblem Hero or Fire Emblem Warriors, another separate mainline Fire Emblem, which I just find interesting because it's something that's been repeated a lot, and I don't see it happening a whole bunch because of Warriors existing. But it has been, 4 years since Three Houses?
Yeah, so just about.
Yeah, technically the timing would be right to have a new game, whether that's a remake of an older one or just a whole new experience.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that. It seems like they're still milking the Fire Emblem Three Houses cash cow, though, you know, with the spinoff just now coming out. It doesn't seem like they're quite ready to move on.
But yeah, there's just, I've seen that rumor repeated so much and substantiated by a good amount of people, but I don't know what form that's going to take.
If we look at how Fire Emblem worked on the 3DS, where we received, like, I think we could say 3 main games, the final one being a remake. I could easily see a new one announced, and I think it's a series that Nintendo really wants to keep the stuff going with a new release for fans to look forward. So as soon as Fire Emblem Three Hopes Warriors is released, I think they are free to announce another one. And it's not, I think Fire Emblem is a kind of game that they can just reuse a lot of the assets and a lot of the stuff that they already had and write a whole new story with new characters, and people will be satisfied. It's not the kind of game that needs a massive production and graphics and a lot of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
I suppose that's true.
Okay,
in terms
so
of
that was your rumor.
Yeah. I'm trying to buy time because honestly, like, similar to Luiz, the main thing I would have said 4 months ago would have been Xenoblade 3, or just whatever Monolith Soft is working on, but we know what's happening with that. So, dreams already come true then. I think otherwise, it would have to be... I have a cheaty answer and an actual answer. The actual answer is an actual Nintendo game. And that would be either a Golden Sun remake or a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers remake. Golden Sun, because that's a series that desperately needs to come back, and I really hope, because I just want to be able to experience it, and for people to be able to experience it again. And Mystery Dungeon Explorers remake, because that game is literally my childhood, and they did such a good job with the Rescue Team remake that I would, if they remade an Explorers of Sky game, I would just be overjoyed.
I take it you have a lot of nostalgia for the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games.
For the Explorers games in particular, I played some of the originals, the one that was a GBA and DS version, but the Explorers games, I played Gen 4 as a kid. Those were the Gen 4 games. They had a great story. Surprisingly, they were the first time I cried in a video game story, because damn, does that story hit harder than you would think coming from a Pokemon game.
Really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. No spoilers, but it is a good story. And the game overall is just really, really good. And the fact that it was rated so lowly in reviews on release is a damn shame. But I would be happy if that came back.
Yeah, no, those are some solid picks that I definitely would not have thought of. Since you mentioned Pokemon and Golden Sun, I know this isn't technically a Golden Sun game, but it got me thinking, did you ever play that DS game, Pokemon Conquest? That was like a
Yes.
It was like a tactical role-playing Pokemon game.
Yep. A mix between, what was it, Nobunaga's Ambition and Pokemon, I think?
Yeah.
I think that was the other franchise.
Yeah.
It's good. This was the era of Pokemon games where they made a lot of spin-offs, and the majority of them were actually really competent, which is odd, but the Pokemon Conquest was just a really fun, well-crafted game. It had a ton of different campaigns in it, with all the different warriors. It had a great art style. That was just a really fun game. I don't expect it to come back just because it was a crossover with another pretty disconnected franchise. But if it eventually did return, I would be happy for it.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that either, but it just got me thinking when you were mentioning all these different franchises. I feel like they already merged these together.
Yeah. That was such a golden age of Pokemon spin-offs.
Yeah, we really don't get
Anyway.
those smaller Pokemon games nearly as often. Like, we even got there was like a whole Pokemon, like it was like Poke Park, I think was what it was. It was like all about exploring a Pokemon Island as mini games and stuff. It was like, they just did all these weird off the wall things that we don't really see from them anymore. Well, anyways, here's my pie in the sky pick that I don't think we're gonna get anytime soon, but I really want it. I really want a new Kid Icarus game. I really want a sequel to Kid Icarus Uprising. It's so long overdue. So long
that's
overdue.
a good pick.
I feel like that game has not aged a single day. I mean, I just bought a physical copy of it because I know the 3DS is going to just keep getting more and more expensive to shop for. And I had a copy of the game as a kid, but I sold it in a moment of poor decision making, I will say. And man, booting up that game nowadays, it looks gorgeous on the 3DS. It is so ambitious mechanically. I think it feels great to play, personally. I know there was a lot of fuss over the controls, but hey, now we have a system with dual analog sticks, and, there's no excuse why Nintendo couldn't make a really competent third-person shooter. That game just has so much style and flair, and the story has got some interesting plot twists, and it had a full suite of online multiplayer back in 2011, 2012. It had a more robust online multiplayer suite than some of the games coming out nowadays do from Nintendo. It was just a great package, and I think, the character, Pit, he's still been put in Smash, and we haven't seen much else from him, but I feel like the time is right. I feel like you've got this huge audience of people that have nostalgia for the 3DS game, and I feel like more people than ever are familiar with Pit as a character because of Smash Brothers. So I'm crossing my fingers for it. I don't think we're gonna get it, but
I would love to see that.
Yeah, you don't want to wait another 25 years for the next game.
oh gosh,
It's tradition. I mean,
Yeah,
but you know what? Sakurai is free technically. So maybe he could return to another one, because I think one of the things that make Kid Icarus Uprising on the 3DS so special is a lot of the stuff that is so good in that game. I think is related to Sakurai, just his attention to detail and the way that he wants to cram so much in the game. Like there's a multiplayer, there's the single story, there's a lot of dialogue. So I would love to see a second game directed by him.
Yeah, I mean, even just a remake of the first game or an enhanced port, I guess, would be fantastic. But
that's probably more, I would
realistic.
say more probably, yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on what Sakurai is doing right now. I don't know if he's talked about it. He has a lot of columns and interviews that he's conducted after Smash released, but I don't know if he's ever mentioned what he plans on doing now. That would be a fantastic return, though.
Wouldn't it be so funny if he came out during the not E3 Direct and he was like, everyone, I want to announce my next project. It is Wave 3 of Smash Brothers Ultimate DLC.
No.
It is going to be all Fire Emblem characters. And that's it.
Perfect.
Perfect. All right. Well, before we wrap up this segment about our E3 predictions, I guess there's one thing we haven't really talked about, and that would be third-party games on the Switch. I feel like we're at an interesting point in the Switch's life where, the gap was already pretty large between the Switch and the last generation of consoles, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. But now we're at a point where the gap is even bigger with the new generation of Sony and Microsoft consoles that are out. But in the past, we've gotten some pretty ambitious third-party ports like The Witcher 3, things of that nature that even just recently, they announced that No Man's Sky was coming to the Switch, which I think is a pretty ambitious port nowadays. So I guess my last question before we wrap up this topic is, do you guys think we could get another one of these big, crazy, ambitious third-party ports over to the Switch? And if so, what would you like to see?
I think... at this point on Switch Live, I think we will end up receiving what we've been receiving in recent Nintendo Directs, which are games from the PS3 and 360 era. And I'm not complaining about that. I think the Switch is perfect for those ports because a lot of these games are amazing to play on the Switch. Just recently we saw the announcements of Alan Wake. So I think a lot of we still have a lot of stuff from that time to receive. One game that I never understood why it did not come to the Switch is GTA 5. I'm still waiting to see the game on Switch because I think it's such a perfect fit. And but in general, I think those big ambitious ports will be more and more hard to imagine on the Switch. With now the PS5 and Series S, Series X, the developers don't want to be like fighting to cut things out of the game to make it run on this smaller platform. So yeah, I think I don't see a recent game that will probably come out to the Switch from the more recent announcements. But I hope we keep receiving old ports and some nice exclusives. Like, I think Square Enix will probably announce something. Those companies that are closely related to Nintendo. I saw some rumors about an exclusive Resident Evil for the Switch. And I think it would be cool. Like, the Revelations was for the 3DS. I think it makes sense. They could make a side game with that similar vibe. So I'm more hopeful on that end than those big and ambitious ports.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much hit the nail on the head, Luiz. That, or we might get some more cloud streaming games, which I think folks would not be nearly as excited about. What about you, Nicholas? Do you have any thoughts about this? Third-party games coming to the Switch?
I mean, I think Luis summarized it pretty well in terms of what might happen. If I had any personal wishes in terms of things, or specific games, I don't... There's maybe... The only thing that comes to mind immediately in terms of a port is Muramasa the Demon Blade. That was a Vanillaware game that originally came out on the Wii and got a PS Vita port. They're the same developers that recently released 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Although I guess technically it released first on PS4, but it recently got a port on Switch, which was really well received. And another one of their games, Grimoire, was announced to be releasing in Japan. So there is precedent for them releasing their games on the Switch, and I would just be really happy if Muramasa is one of those, because it is probably what I would consider to be the most underrated game on the Wii. It is a fantastic 2D action game. It is absolutely beautiful. I love that game to death, and it makes me very sad that it stuck to the Wii and then the Vita of all systems.
Yeah,
it did not deserve that fate.
That's a solid choice. Well, you know, the Vita had that great OLED screen, and I think that was maybe part of the reason why they brought that over to that console. But now we have the Switch OLED, so that makes a pretty good case, you know, if that's a part of their creative vision, bring that game over. Yeah, no, you're right. Vanillaware has been on a bit of a roll lately, so I think that's feasible. I think we could totally see that. What were you going to say, Luis?
No, I just remembered that we were talking about those big ports to the Switch. There are two games that I'm very curious to see how they will run on the Switch, which is Sonic Frontiers and Hogwarts Legacy, the Harry Potter game. Those games, Hogwarts Legacy in particular, I don't have a single idea how it will run on the Switch, seeing the trailer. But yeah, we still have some of those games, and it'll be interesting. I don't think I will play them on Switch, to be honest, but it's always interesting to see how they will run.
Well, hey, speaking of Sonic Frontiers, that is one of our news topics. Sonic Frontiers has been in the news a little bit this week for a couple reasons. The actual news reason is that Sega was talking about saying, hey, we're really, going big with this game. We're trying to get high review scores, which was just like a really
shocking.
Weird thing. You're like, wait, you want this big Sonic game to review well? No.
It's like the worst PR response that I ever saw. Like, it's him coming out literally saying, hey guys, this time we're actually trying to make a good game. So last time, what were you trying to do? what Sonic Forces was? It's something that, I mean, I'm so desperate to see a good Sonic game that it is kind of reassuring to hear that. But it is also kind of worrying to hear and to imagine how out of touch Sega is at the moment with Sonic. Like, they really they say some stuff that with the, I mean, speaking of the main games, because in the other departments Sonic is doing pretty well with the movie and all that stuff, but with the main series it's crazy how out of touch the company is.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's always like that pocket of people who will love every Sonic release, like there are definitely people out there who enjoyed Sonic Forces, and then of course you have the 2D games that have come out recently, but Sonic Frontiers does really seem to be like the biggest reboot we've had of 3D Sonic in a long time. I mean, for those of you who aren't familiar, this game it's going, they call it an open zone approach. So we're talking much more open environments for Sonic to explore in 3D. Some people, when the game was originally revealed, they were saying, oh, it's like Sonic Breath of the Wild, but it sounds like they're taking more of like an open level approach, kind of closer to what they did with Super Mario Odyssey. I'd say that's a safe way to characterize it. So a lot of people are really curious how that's going to work for a character like Sonic, and how do you design levels that still feel really good and really tight to play when you're doing it in this big open environment? I think that's probably my big question about the game is I think we need to see some actual gameplay of it soon to really get a sense for how that will work.
Yeah. I mean, the initial trailer looked promising. It was mostly CG visuals, so we didn't exactly get to see much of the game itself, but it did paint a nice picture. It makes you hopeful that whatever they put out, it's going to be good. I do remember there being, I believe it was a location test of the game that happened a few months ago, or at least rumors of that, and people coming out of that saying, oh, the game's not good. It's very, very not good, which, probably contributed to them wanting to put a little bit more time into it, assuming that's true. But like you're saying, it's hard to conceptualize how Sonic gameplay will fit in an open area, because the whole point of Sonic is you go through a place fast, And how do you reconcile that with an open area where you can just go across the entire area in a snap? That doesn't feel like something that necessarily makes sense. So it's definitely going to be curious to see what their approach to this will be.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're totally going to have to rework the way that he moves, because if you think about how a lot of the 3D Sonic games work, you're mostly on a very on-rails path, and you don't really have to do a lot of, like, you make small turns, or you, like, change your angle or whatever, but, like, looking at some screenshots of the game, I mean, this is, like, a totally open environment. And so the way that Sonic, like, turns and handles, when you're, like, how do you make a sharp turn as Sonic in 3D? It's not really something that he has to do super often in his latest games.
I think we have some nice examples in the fan community where Sonic fans make a lot of like demos and levels with fun games, and I saw some nice open world prototypes with Sonic going really fast and like exploring this whole area in a really with a lot of speed and all that stuff, and I think it can work, but it's always hard to imagine a whole game like this. I think the thing that is making me the most optimistic about this game is the fact that they hired the guy who makes the Sonic comics to write the story, and the Sonic comics has a huge fandom. The story is really great from what I heard. So I'm really hopeful that they are trying to bring some elements from the fans, from what people really been asking for. Because even though Sonic has not been consistently great in his games, the fan base has always been very passionate, sometimes even fixing the games. So I hope they take notes from that.
Yeah, I think with them saying, oh, like, we're really shooting for higher review scores, one of the things that makes me nervous is when a company says something like that, one of the ways you could interpret that is saying, hey, we're going to take, look, this game got really good review scores. This game got really good review scores, so we're just going to take as many elements from these other games and try and cram them into our Sonic game so we can try and get high review scores,
Sonic Frontiers is the Dark Souls of Sonic.
Right. Sonic plus Elden Ring. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're going to do anything quite like that, but there's definitely that concern that, like, hey, are they going to be able to retain the identity of the Sonic series if they're doing this? Or are they just going to try and make it a greatest hits thing of things that worked for other games?
It's a weird answer, because they could, when they say that they want to receive good scores on Metacritic and stuff like that, it seems that they are not aiming for the fans and for the critics, and a lot of people don't see that with good eyes. I think maybe they should just say that they are trying to appeal to the fans, they are trying to hear the feedback of previous games and try to make something better. But saying like this, where they just aiming for a good score, it sounds like they are trying to just get a good note and not actually make a good game, just trying to appeal to what critics usually like. I think they are not saying that. It's just a corporate answer, just to say something more directly, because recent Sonic games received poor scores, but definitely not the best way to put it, I would say.
Yeah. I think one thing that people will be excited for if they put it in the new Sonic game that will just get a 10 out of 10s everywhere is, Nicholas, you were very excited about Ugly Sonic. Ugly Sonic was trending on the
excited might be a big word. I was intrigued as to why Ugly Sonic was suddenly showing back up in just the news feed. For people that aren't aware, Ugly Sonic is the Sonic design that was initially revealed when the first Sonic movie was shown off, that was heavily criticized and ended up being swapped out for the design that we currently have in the movies. But in a Chip and Dale movie, of all things, they brought Ugly Sonic back into that movie, and the character plays a relatively important role in it. And it's very confusing. Like, you expect some of these things to return, right? Whenever you have a black sheep of a franchise, or something that's usually kind of disliked when it's first shown off, it's never too surprising when a few years down the line, someone starts saying, like, hey, actually, this was kind of good. Like, it's happened with the Star Wars prequels, for instance.
Yeah.
I just never expected that to happen so soon with that design.
Yeah, it's really strange. Well, and for it to appear in that movie, that means that the people at Sega had to like sign off on it, and they're like, okay, no, this is okay. We're gonna put this version of Sonic in this movie. I'm like, okay.
It just, I think I'm surprised that Sega was not the first one to make fun of that, because we saw Sonic with the social media and all of that. Usually we see Sonic make fun of his own history, because he has some missteps, and usually we see on social media and stuff like that, Sega referencing some of that stuff. So I'm just surprised that Ugly Sonic is not like a skin in Sonic Frontier. And maybe it will, I don't know.
The main villain of the game.
It was definitely a surprise. Hey, speaking of surprises, here was something that I think a lot of folks weren't expecting this week. Finally, after a fairly large amount of time, we got an update on Fall Guys for the Switch. And probably the biggest thing about that update is that it is coming, the game is coming very soon, and it is coming and launching as a free-to-play game across all platforms. This is big news because this was a game that was featured pretty heavily in a Nintendo Direct. I can't remember when exactly, but it's been a little while at this point. So yeah, Nicholas, are you excited for Fall Guys on the Switch?
I mean, I think the main problem that I have with the game is that it kind of feels like its time has passed, right? Like, Fall Guys started gaining a lot of popularity, I want to say in 2020 around the pandemic, when a whole bunch of people were playing it. But it's been a couple of years since, and the hype has kind of died down? Maybe this will reinvigorate a little bit of life into the game, the fact that it's going free to play and all. But it doesn't carry that same excitement that it would have if it came even just 1 year ago. I think that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Yeah, you're right. This game did launch in 2020, and it was originally just on PC and PS4. But yeah, despite that, I mean, that game was all over social media when it launched in that little pocket of the summer. And yeah, the port just took a really long time. I want to say it was announced last year. So yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, they're still really trying to push it hard. You know, they're like, oh, we have new seasons of content coming, you know, every couple months that, you know, supposedly refreshes the game. And I'm sure, you know, with just how many people are playing games on the Switch, right? Lots of kids and stuff. You know, a free game like that, it's going to bring more people in. Yeah. I don't know. Luiz, what do you think? Do you think the time for Fall Guys has passed?
I think, yeah, probably a lot of people are with Nicholas on this one, on the same page. And this game had like a big boom where everyone was playing it, but then everyone kind of stopped. Personally speaking, I remember buying it on my PC, and I played some matches. I remember having a lot of fun with it, but it was just not the kind of game that I enjoy playing on my PC. So I remember playing on the PC and saying stuff like, oh, I think it will come to the Switch soon, so I'll just wait. And then I'm waiting. And just right now it will finally release. And yeah, it took a while, and I think they kind of lost the Switch hype train on that department. But I kind of respect the fact that, from my point of view, I think they were really working on to have all the other versions, like not only the Switch version, but also the Xbox version and the cross-play feature ready to go. So I think that was probably the reason why it took so long. They wanted to do this big re-release of the game, to revive the game. I think that's their main goal right now, bringing in seasons, bringing the Switch version, and of course making it free to play, which makes total sense. I think I wouldn't buy the game if it was not free to play on the Switch. So
yeah.
Personally speaking, I'm excited. I'm excited to play on Switch.
Yeah, I'll probably try it as well, but it is it's lost so much momentum.
Yeah, true.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, too little, too late. But yeah, it'll certainly find its audience. I think that's definitely a safe bet. All right, well, we've got one more quick news topic to throw in here before we get into our last segment, what we've been playing. And this one is related to Splatoon 3. There is a little bit of hearsay going around, or did I think Nintendo might have outright confirmed this, that Splatoon 3 will
Sort
in
of.
fact support cloud saves. Yeah, it's in like that middle territory where it's like, oh, it's kind of confirmed, but not really. Splatoon 3 should possibly support some level of cloud saves, which is big news because Splatoon 2 did not.
Yeah, I mean, the big caveat to that right now is that, while the game will support cloud saves, there was some text that Nintendo put out that indicated that those cloud saves would only be supported for the offline campaign of the game and would not carry over to the actual online multiplayer, which I mean, it's sort of in line with how they've treated the games and these kinds of online games in the past. At the same time, I don't know how exactly that would work. It seems like a lot of effort to put into kind of hindering your cloud saves, but
Right. I mean, I know they were concerned about like people cheating, basically, right? And that was
Yeah.
part of the reason why they didn't support any form of cloud saves. And yeah, I was doing a little bit more digging into this, and I mean, I guess you could consider it an official confirmation because it was like on the official games page. But on the other hand, you know, sometimes things like these just pop up, so it's hard to say for sure at this point, I think. But yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, if they're really going to be stuck in their ways about, oh, we won't do any kind of online save support because we don't want people cheating or getting items when they're not supposed to or whatever, then single player is better than nothing, I guess.
yeah, but I mean, at the same time, like, having cloud saves on your single player is nice. Being able to transfer that data is nice, but Splatoon 3 is still an online shooter, and I imagine that a lot of people are going to spend most of their time in the game online shooting. And if that's the data that isn't being saved through the cloud saves, it kind of... I feel like it sort of defeats the point.
Does any other company does that for our online game, or is just Nintendo?
I could not tell you. I feel like that might just be a Nintendo thing, to be honest.
I feel like we can confidently say.
It's a Nintendo stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's that Nintendo thing where there are some decisions where they simply do not go back. And it's kind of weird because I think those games would be really important to have a cloud save. I think those are some of the most important cloud save that we could have for those online experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, as Nick said, the offline save is better than nothing. But I would thought that to this point they would have a solution for that with the new Splatoon and all of that stuff. So it is kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll do something weird like they did with Animal Crossing New Horizons, where they have like a whole separate like thing in the menu, like where you have to.
I remember that.
Yeah, I could see them doing something like that. It's not an elegant solution by any means, though.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I get why they want to prevent cheating like this, or whatever possible form of cheating, but you gotta you gotta balance things out, you gotta weigh things out, and is the benefit of stopping some form of cheating from some people really worth more than letting everyone have access to their save files and make sure that they're safe? It just feels like it's a very Nintendo decision where it's kind of just, like you've said, they have their own idea in mind and they kind of just go forward with that idea regardless of what people think.
Do Pokemon has the same issue?
Yeah.
Pokemon, the most recent one, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl?
I think all of them do. I'm pretty sure
Even
Sword and
Legends
Shield
Arceus,
has it.
because Legends
Yeah.
Arceus, I think there's no online compatibility on that game.
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, I think that's for the Pokemon stuff. I imagine that's more the Pokemon Company mandate. They kind of make their own odd decisions when it comes to things like this. But I mean, Nintendo has Splatoon 2 and Animal Crossing, I think, are the two main ones that they don't have cloud saves for.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like they haven't ignored that either. But at the same time, like, those are the only two games. And in terms of, like, they've had other games with online components, but those are the only two non-Pokemon games where they've blocked cloud saves, and it just kind of feels pointless.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'd just be better off. I feel like it wouldn't realistically cause that much harm if every game on the system could just have cloud saves, but is what it is.
Yeah, hey, at least they're making like a half step in the right direction. Maybe whenever we get whatever the next Switch hardware is, or whatever their next console is, they'll finally figure it out. Be like, yeah, we'll give full cloud saves this time around. You guys have proven you can handle it. All right, well, that just about wraps up our news topics for the week. Thank you to everyone who has gotten to this point in the show so far. We're just going to wrap things up real quick and get into what we have been playing. So, Luiz, let's start with you. What have you been playing this past week? And I think I already know your answer, but...
yeah, nothing new. I'm still playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's crazy because it's a game that you turn on, and when you see you just spent 2 hours on it, and you barely made any progress.
Do you, when you're playing a game like this, do you, give yourself a break? Do you give yourself something smaller to play in the meantime? Or do you just, no, I'm just going to power through?
Because here's the thing, because I already played it and I'm quite over leveled, I'm not stressing out playing it. The stuff is that it's just that there's a lot to do in a lot of different places and the world is just so big. And I think what keeps me playing is because it's just checking those boxes, There's a lot of that to do, like completing the quest for this character, and this other character has his own quest, and this has his own affinity charge. And there's all this stuff that you can just... every time I turn on the game, I can choose what I want to do. I can do the quests, or I can do the main story, or I can do that, or this. So it's kind of right now I'm playing just as a playground. I'm not actually stressing out while playing it, and I think that's why it is quite fun. But I think that's the only one that I played this week.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to go and revisit games. Is being like, hey, I've already gone through this, so now I'm just going to screw around a little bit and, go enjoy my favorite parts of the experience. Yeah, you kind of have to with big games like that, too. Otherwise, they just get to the point where they're not really digestible anymore,
Yeah, exactly. Because on my first playthrough, I did not did all these side quests, all that stuff. Because when I'm playing a story-focused game, I'm really anxious about... to know what will happen next. So it's hard to me to stop and do the side quest stuff and all that stuff that will usually make your character better, but I just try to go head on the story because I'm really anxious to know what will happen.
Although it is funny that you can have Malus just being in the middle of destroying the entire world, and in the meantime you're off someone stole my carrots. Oh no! Can you help me find my carrots?
It's there's this moment on chapter 6 where the Titan is diving, and they say on the cutscene "Oh, we have 1 hour to fix this," and then I go to another place and do some side quests.
It's the most classic thing in these
it's
big
classic
RPGs.
Open world. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. No, hey, I definitely know how you feel because I have still been playing Yakuza 5. I am still trying to beat that game. It is just a massive game, and no joke, I have been trying to beat this game since probably about January or February. I just, I get pulled into other things, right? I have to review games, and so this game was on the back burner for a while. But Luiz, it's that same thing you're talking about, where you've got this really compelling main story, but then all over, you're exploring the various districts of Tokyo or whatever city you're in this game. Because I think I mentioned there's 4 or 5 different cities you visit. It's crazy. But yeah, you just have these totally off-the-wall side quests. One of the ones that I don't think I'll ever forget is you're playing as Haruka, which is the protagonist, basically his adopted stepdaughter. And she's off, trying to make a career for herself, trying to start her idol career, singing and dancing. And she just sees this guy on the street, and he's going to a comedy audition, and his partner dropped out or whatever, and he's like, hey, will you come help me audition for my comedy show? And so then all of a sudden, the game introduces this totally new mechanic that is only used for this very specific minigame, where you have to he throws out a joke basically during his audition, and you have to quickly pick the right response that's the funniest to match his comedic timing, and It's a surprisingly involved minigame, but you only do it like 3 times, and then it never appears ever again. And you're like, why am
Sounds
I
like
doing this?
Yakuza.
Like, yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
and meanwhile she's like trying to solve like someone's murder or whatever, right? Like this like kind of important time sensitive thing. It cracks
Everyone
me
needs a
up.
break.
Yeah, I think I love that kind of secondary stuff. Usually, I think a lot of Japanese JRPG have stuff like that, where you have a super important main mission, but then you have tons of side quests with more of a comedic line and more of a light stuff on the story, and I really like that.
Yeah, Yakuza
Yeah.
in particular, it seems insane with that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The side quests are really worth doing in that game because they're all just so strange and you really just never know what you're gonna get yourself into with them. But then yeah, at a certain point I have to ask myself, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like why am I going through this right now? I could be done with this game like weeks ago if I had just like focused on the story, but here we are. Anyways, what about you, Nicholas? What have you been making your way through lately?
So for the most part, still just working through Octopath. I finished the second of 4 chapters for all the characters, so I'm roughly halfway done, although I think there's still going to be quite a bit of post-game content to do after that. But yeah, really fun turn-based RPG. I can't recommend it enough. I think right now I'm kind of doing some of the side missions in between the more story-based stuff. Kind of like what Luis said, you split your attention, you do some of the heavy story content, then you relax some of the side missions, whatnot. So that's been fun. Since I try not to go too hard with an RPG, I've been playing a few other things this week, but the main one was that I tried the Card Shark demo that came out, I think about 2 weeks ago. It was announced during the Indie World, and Card Shark is it's a really interesting game. It's basically parlor trick and card trick simulator, but with a really intricate story and a really fun art style.
Yeah, I really want to hear your thoughts on this game because it just seems like I've never seen a game with this type of concept before, where you're not just playing cards, you have to cheat at cards and not die.
So yeah, I was pretty unsure about it because it just seems so bizarre, right? Like how do you do these different card tricks with an AI and whatnot? How do you manage that? So I thought, I had some free time, I may as well try out the demo, and the demo pretty much convinced me. I mean, first is that the tone and story of the game is just great. It's set just before the French Revolution, and you're this mute boy that ends up being framed for a murder, and you have to run off and basically are taken under this ring of this famous gambler that teaches you all these card tricks to help you win, and just help you guys make money. And the way the game kind of progresses is that you start learning more and more of different types of card tricks you can do, and you have little matches with other people where the goal isn't to win the card game in a traditional sense. You don't try and actually play poker. The goal is to be able to perform these tricks correctly. So for instance, you'll have to pour a bottle of wine over the opponent's shoulder and then just peer around and look at his cards. You have to pour it just fast enough that you can lean in and see his cards, but not too fast where the glass overflows and they get suspicious. After that, you have to use different hand signals, depending on where you lift the glass, which you control with the stick. You basically tell your partner, hey, this is the type of card he has, and then you use a mop, and depending on how you move, you swab the table, whether it's counterclockwise, clockwise, up and down, left and right. It determines hey, this is the suit he has. Some really interesting stuff, and I feel like it could honestly probably teach you genuine tricks if you try to replicate, because it explains them pretty well. And it's
so that was going to be
really
my next
engaging.
question. Do you have to be good at cards to enjoy this game, or does it kind of explain how to do these tricks to you?
It explains how to do these tricks to you. It's funny because honestly, the cards, actually knowing how to play cards matters very little. I guess you would want to know, you have 4 suits and that the ace is the highest, followed by king, queen, jack, and that's about all you really need to know in terms of playing cards itself. You don't need like poker knowledge or solitaire knowledge or whatever, because what the game is really testing you on is, can you execute these tricks? You have a little gauge at the bottom where it's basically like the suspicion meter, and the longer you take to execute these tricks properly, the more suspicious people get. So you have to be able to remember, like, hey, if I saw he had an ace of hearts, I need to be able to signal it by lifting the glass at the rim, and I need to move my hand in a clockwise motion. And you just have to make these decisions fairly quickly, where it's like, okay, what did I mark off? What did I see? What do I have to do so I can make the proper signal and be able to win the round?
Wow. I mean, that's just, on top of just being a really unique concept for a game, it sounds like they did a pretty good job at making it intuitive, and it sounds like a pretty fun experience.
It really surprised me. And I mean, the setting is, the setting is really neat. It's just, obviously I'm part French, so I'm going to have a little bit of bias here. But the way they replicate the pre-revolutionary setting is really cool. You have famous figures like Voltaire that show up and are actually relevant to the story. And the art style complements all of this really well. There's really good dialogue that kind of reflects some of the terms and terminology and just the speech patterns of the time. It's all really, really well presented too.
Wow. Well, you've definitely sold me on this game. Do you think you're going to pick up the full version when it comes out on June 2nd?
I probably will, to be honest. I mean, like I said, the demo really intrigued me, and I want to try out more. I want to see what else the game has to offer. I definitely recommend trying out the demo at least, because it's such a unique concept. It's hard to really get exactly how it works unless you try it out yourself, and I think it's definitely worth trying.
Okay. Wow, man. That sounds just like a great experience. I'm definitely going to have to keep that one on my radar in the near future. Well, folks, that just about wraps up our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 9 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. That's right, folks. We are 1 episode away from our 10-episode anniversary, I guess you could call it. So thank you. I know, right? That's worth celebrating for sure. And don't worry, folks. Dennis, he is not gone. He has not fallen into the ether. He will be back in the near future. Thank you to everyone who has been listening to us. As a reminder, if you are watching us on YouTube, we also have streaming versions on every major streaming platform: Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, you name it. We are probably out there at this point. And if you are listening to us on streaming platforms, you can either check out the video version on YouTube, or we actually have a video version on Spotify now, which is a super cool way to get the best of both worlds. So yeah, thank you to everyone who has been listening. As always, if you have any questions or thoughts about the show, suggestions for future topics, you are always welcome to email them to us. Our show email is in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back at you next week.